I set a goal for us in our live chat for $100 worth of super chats. I don't want you guys to donate to us. I put a note on there as well. I want you guys to donate to our guest tonight. Our guest tonight is Octavian Smith. He's got an Open Doors account, and he's got a bunch of $10 options. So I set a goal for 10 super chats of $10. Don't send it to us. Send it to Octavian for appearing tonight. We're going to help support him as a Terp. One of the rare guys who spends 4 years with your team and develops over the course of all 4 years the stuff that we love. That seems to be going away, but he's done it. So everybody, please hook him up. I have the link in the chat in the description of the YouTube channel. So please do that. Octavian, our guest, Octavian Smith Jr., he's a senior wide receiver. He's going to be having his final year in the fall. The other thing we're going to be talking about is all the basketball recruiting. And wow, has that blown up recently. It seems like just the one commit, but it feels like the entire list of probables changed in the last few days.
It's so weird. A lot.
Yeah.
They're not just taking guys to take them for a while. It seemed like, are these people were asking, are they out of money? I know they weren't out of money, but I thought there was a chance that they were starting to run a little low just based on some of the guys that they missed on in, 2 weeks. I think before Darius Adams committed, it had been 2 weeks without a commitment.
After it was like one a day for almost 2 weeks, or a week and a half about when they had those 8 and 9 days or whatever it was. It was crazy.
Those were the easy picking. Those were mostly the guys from Texas A&M following along, so they were already probably mostly lined up well ahead of time to follow him, as a lot of guys do these days. But Darius Adams, that's not the kind of commit Maryland gets very often, let alone out of the blue. I was thinking about just like a list of the most surprising commitments, the 10 most surprising. That would be way up there. He obviously, part of it is because he just decommitted a week ago from UConn, or 10 days, whatever it might have been. So it wasn't, a long-lasting saga where we were following the twists and turns. But number 23 overall recruit in the 24/7 Sports Composite. That's the fourth highest rated recruit of the modern era for Maryland. Literally the highest rated guard Maryland has signed in 25 years. So not bad, for your first month on the job.
Yeah, because all the other Queen, Diamond Stone, Jalen Smith, I'm thinking those are the three. Okay.
And then right behind Adams. Yeah. Who do you think's right behind Adams? It's the guard. I'll give you that hint.
Mello?
Mello's
okay. No. Roddy Peters.
Nah, he's like 12.
Oh,
I think more current. Very current.
Very current? No. Anyone on the last year's team? No, they're all transfers. So
no, it was somebody on last year's team.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, Deshaun Harris Smith is number 4 on the list.
Oh my God. Wow. That is
one of the big, and not trying to pile on, it's not his fault he's rated that high, but one of the biggest misses both by the scouting services, and Kevin Willard called him, since we're piling on him lately, called him the greatest player he's ever recruited at one point.
Certainly the highest rated.
Top 10. What's that?
Probably the highest rated, at least because he didn't get highly rated players at Seton Hall.
Yeah, well, Queen, but
he was before Queen, so then Queen surpassed him, I guess.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, he couldn't have said that ahead of time, but
yeah.
And they beat out Michigan State, which really wanted him. A lot of sour grapes there, so you could tell they really wanted him a lot.
So, hey, let me ask you this. I saw that. I went to their board a little bit because people on the Maryland.247sports.com linked to the Michigan State sour grapes thread, which is always fun to read after Maryland wins games or after a recruiting victory. But they were all the big claim there was that Maryland promised him a starting spot in the lineup. That's not true, is it? That's just them. There's no way.
That's sour grapes because everybody, to some extent, even if you're not promising, you're saying, like, I mean, look at what Maryland has. It's not their fault. They're telling them they have a lot of playing time available.
Right. There's an opportunity for playing time. It's very different than saying you're guaranteed a starting spot.
That's just silly. Nobody's guaranteeing. I mean, maybe some guys, or maybe they're overselling, your opportunity, whatever it might be. But that's always been. The go-to line used to be that they paid him, but now that paying is legal.
Right.
Now you got to say something like that. Although people still do use that one, like, oh, they threw a bunch of money at him. That's why they got him.
He wouldn't go there if it wasn't for the money. Implying that if all things are equal, our program is more attractive. We're the beautiful, smart people, and they're the idiot losers. And there's no way they would choose that program if it wasn't for the money.
Yep, we've seen it for 30 years now. We know you could write a script, but a huge one. I mean, he could start. He could play 30 minutes if he's ready because there's not a lot of guards on the roster. So now you get him, and if you add a couple more good pieces, I think maybe they go into the year potentially top 25.
Potentially top 25. Okay, I was looking at the roster, and I don't have my spreadsheet pulled up, but I was looking at all of their Bart Torvik player ratings last year. I've brought this up a couple of times, and adding Adams to it really changes it because a player of his caliber, you expect them to be in the 2 to 2.5 range, maybe even a little better. In terms of player rating. And so that jumped them up a lot closer to last year's team.
Where are they ranked?
It was, I think after he was added, they were up to about 15.6 with expected improvement. Last year's roster was 20. So they're getting there. And I don't think they'll reach it because they'll need 3 more really good recruits.
Yeah,
but they'll get, I think, a few more at least, and they're going to have to get an interior guy, right? Another guy to come off the bench, presumably, unless they.
Yeah,
there's
that's definitely the top. Got to be the top priority at this point. Now that you've added another guard, I mean, you got Pharrell Payne, who could be one of the better bigs in the Big Ten. You got Solomon Washington, a solid, scrappy guy, is a solid starter. And then after that, there's not, you got Christian Saunders from Virginia who should help, but you need another big. And they had a kid named Roman Soyoye. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. From Ramon, Soyoye, or from Nigeria originally, Blair Academy in New Jersey. He visited over the weekend. I don't know if he's like an immediate fix for that. He's a raw guy who's only played 4 years of basketball. So, I still think you need a transfer of some sort of proven stature, to come in and help. I'm sure they'll do that. They have, now you can add up to 15 guys to your roster. They have 9. I wouldn't think they'll do all 15. To me seems ridiculous, but even if there's 4 more, you hope at least, one of them is a proven big man and maybe one is a shooter.
Is there a chance that I guess it's money. Do they have the money, I guess, is the real question, to get any other starter level players who might improve the team in that regard, not just a bench player?
I'm still waiting for a name to pop up, like a big man who's a starter or close to it somewhere else, or even a 6-man, whatever. And mostly with the post guys, there haven't, since Payne and Washington, there haven't been a lot of highly known big men on their radar. We've heard more about guards. I've reported a lot this week on Travis Perry from Kentucky, shooter. He's the all-time leading scorer in Kentucky high school basketball history. Just was overcrowded at his position at Kentucky. They're waiting on an answer from him. I think he would be a really nice piece to add because there's still outside shooting is still there's no proven shooters basically on the roster. The Coit kid from Kansas was a big time scorer at Northern Illinois. So we'll see if he can rediscover that form. But they need shooters.
Music to Maryland fans' ears. No proven outside shooters.
I mean, Buzz's strategy seems to be get it up there on the rim and go get the rebound and get fouled or put it back in. So let's see. Even actually, one of my tweets, I wrote something about has he found his shooter, and like 3 Texas A&M fans chimed in. They're like, "Oh, look at this guy! He thinks that Buzz is going to get shooters." Like that's like kind of a knock. So that he doesn't really,
Well, they're doing to Maryland what Maryland fans are doing to Villanova with Kevin Willard. So.
Well, he's done a hell of a lot better job than Willard.
Yes, that's true. How about that trade? I think as of right now, Maryland's coming out on top on that big time.
Well, he fumbled the bag a few weeks ago. They had Rodney Rice on campus. Rodney Rice was willing to commit if the number was right, and they tried to basically call their bluff, like the numbers that Rice and his dad or whoever else around him were giving them were inflated or whatever, and they were not bluffing, and they went out to USC and committed. And then I was told Villanova tried to get back in at that point, but no, we'll, and it was too late. And so now
I'm reminded of the Dave Chappelle meme. You hate to see it, but more than that, you love to see it. Hey.
Yeah.
Sorry, Villanova.
Karma is biting him in the ass. There's no question. They had another Euro kid that they seemed to have a great shot at, who was literally the only name that came out about Maryland contacting a new recruit in March was this kid. So they were working on him then. Chose Rutgers over Villanova yesterday. I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before. And so now I think they're just going to throw $2 million at a Caden Lewis just so they can have some
way overpaying so they can have some kind of victory in recruiting. And it's
because there's not that much left out there to really hang your hat on. So at least then you can build a little hype around that. But I mean, he was never a good recruiter, and I think all this other stuff has taken a toll. And the biggest thing though is when he lost. We're getting into ancient history. I won't.
Yeah, I've let it go. I'm really glad that Rice and Gillespie didn't go, and that was kind of the last thing for me. Whatever they do, fine, good for you. I don't care unless Maryland plays them and somehow their victories or losses affect Maryland's season in some way. We have some good questions in the chat. Seftical asks, how many starters are penciled in currently?
I mean, you got to think Payne, Washington, Rice are surefire starters. Watts, the kid looks pretty good actually from Washington State. Could be one, or maybe you have him competing now with Darius Adams. And you might need to add one more.
I guess Saunders is kind of the 5th one at this moment, right?
Chance, yeah, he could be, or he could be a solid bench guy. I really like the kid Hill, who they got, who was committed there, the kid who redshirted at Texas A&M. His video is really good, so I think he's got a shot to be a real player. But
what about
3 are penciled in, maybe 3.5 probably 3 right now.
Okay. What about, isn't Sebastian Wilkins, he's still a possibility, correct? Or maybe better than a possibility?
I think he's a legit possibility, maybe even a strong possibility. I'm not trying to imply he's a done deal. I don't know him to be a done deal, but I do have heard that Maryland's in the lead even after Duke offered, which, as I wrote on the site, we had a conversation on the message board. Usually, not even usually, pretty much always for the past 10 or 15 years, if a guy gets a Duke offer, you can write him off. I mean, I can't remember the last time Maryland beat Duke for literally a single recruit, but it's
Danny Miller.
What's that?
Wasn't Danny Miller a Maryland and Duke recruit? I think that's.
Yeah, I think he was. He might be the last. I mean, they got Rasheed.
That's the 90s. That's exactly. The 90s. So
there might be somebody 20 years ago I'm forgetting about, but I really don't think there's anybody in the past 10 or 15 that I can recall.
Yeah.
But in this instant, things have changed a little bit. Guys want to play right away. NIL matters. Obviously, Duke has a ton of money, so that's not a huge advantage. But
yeah, but if you go there, you're going to be buried. He has to know he's going to be buried there.
Yeah, exactly. And so many kids go there either knowing that and not caring because it's cool to play for Duke,
and you're getting money.
Yeah, that bandwagon mindset I can't stand. But or they go there delusional, like the Harris kid who's there now from Paul VI hasn't played.
Did he leave?
No, I'm pretty sure he's stuck around.
Staying.
Yeah.
Darren Harris, right?
Yeah.
I think it's Darren Harris, yeah.
Darren Harris, yeah.
I've told you about my neighbor who knew all the PVI kids. He kind of played there for a year, and he knew all of them. He's friends with
Did he get us some low-key scoop?
He did give us
nuggets?
He did give us a couple, particularly about Deshaun, because they're boys. He's been to his birthday parties and stuff. Anyway, all right. Here's another question. This is Mr. Popo. How do the scholarship increases for revenue sports affect Title IX stuff? Do we need to add? Does Maryland or does anyone really need to add more women's scholarships because of it?
The way everyone's talking about it is somehow it's gonna be immune from Title IX. I don't know how. I'm not a lawyer. I don't understand half the stuff with the antitrust and all that and everything else. But I would think by now, if they were worried about that, you would hear a lot more about like some programs being cut or how are they going to get around it. And it doesn't seem like anyone's talking about that. But who knows? We thought by April 7th they'd be done. They would get this settlement done. They would,
Isn't it June 1st now?
What's that?
It's supposed to be June 1st now, right?
Yeah. So, who knows? But no, I don't think Title IX is going to apply. I don't understand how, because it always has seemed to be pretty hard coded. But we'll just have to see.
Ace Dog 5000 asks, is Maryland going to get the transfer from Kentucky?
I think they got a good shot. They're waiting on an answer. I wouldn't be surprised if we know this week. I think they have communicated that they need an answer soon before they move on. So, it could happen in the next couple of days. But
I forget his name.
Travis Perry.
And he was highly rated coming out, but didn't play that much last year, right? So he'd be coming over as probably a backup.
He was number 88 or 84 nationally. So he's
okay.
Top 100 guy. Shot it, he made a decent amount of threes last year. It was only about 33% or something, but he was a freshman, on a loaded team. So he looks like he would be a pretty nice piece. But yeah, I would think we'd know before long. And I know as of like the beginning of this week, I was told that Maryland was the favorite.
This is funny from JM. He searched Google AI to find out about a Maryland versus Duke recruiting battle. And it said the most recent time Maryland beat Duke to recruit a player is not readily available in the provided search results.
You look at all those DC team takeover kids, all the Paul VI kids who've gone to Duke. Wenyan Gabriel was one Maryland had locked up until
was
Duke
DHS maybe a Duke recruit?
I don't think Duke offered him.
Okay.
But, there's been so many over the years, but relationships still matter to some extent. And like you said, some kids are smart enough to know they're not going to play, the opportunity is going to be much larger somewhere else. And this kid seems like one of those like low key kind of guys who isn't, who's not going to be overly excited by the prestige of the Duke offer. Most guys, as soon as they get a Duke offer, bam, they're on the road to go visit. He does.
Yeah.
As far as I know, he doesn't have any visits planned. He's the number. This is Sebastian Wilkins. He's the number, I think, 28 player in the composite. So imagine you get him
for next year, but when he reclasses
back to this year, I think he was initially a part of this class. So it sounds like most likely sometimes guys who are planning on reclassifying back to their original class, they'll play AAU ball that year because they're technically a junior, so they can do that and kind of wait it out and see if anybody else offers or just to keep playing. So that's what he's doing. I think he there's a chance he won't commit until like midway through the summer and could still be a freshman next year. So you get him, he reclassifies. That would be 2 top 30 freshmen in addition to that transfer class, which
out of nowhere would be absolutely insane.
Especially for Buzz Williams, because he just felt like such a coach 'em up kind of guy who's just going to get the overachievers.
He doesn't. Has he ever had recruits that ranked that high before? I doubt it. At Marquette and Virginia Tech and
not many.
At Texas A&M.
Who is the Virginia Tech? Nikhil Alexander Walker at Virginia Tech.
Yes.
He was highly rated. That was because they had a coach on staff who was
like his uncle or something, right?
Canadian pipeline.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm sure there's a few others I'm not thinking of. I didn't follow his recruiting that close, but generally he hasn't been the kind of guy to go for a ton of 5-stars. So if you got 2 top 30 guys, I think the last time probably that's happened at Maryland was like right after the national championship. With that Garrison. I don't even know if he was top 30 or maybe the following class. But
Kenny Abekwe, Chris McRae, DJ Strawberry, Keener Met. They're 2 back-to-back classes, and at this point, I kind of get them mixed up.
I know. I do the same thing with those 2 all the time. Yeah.
Gilchrist was in the first one. He was highly rated. John Gilchrist.
McRae, Garrison.
Yes. Abekwe, Strawberry.
That's next year, yeah. Keener Met.
Yeah.
But anyways, 2 top 30 is pretty much something that doesn't really happen in Maryland. So if he's able to do that right away, he's won a lot of people. I'll eat some crow. I wasn't that excited about the hire. I didn't think it was, I've always thought he was a really good coach. It's impossible not to see that. But at this stage of his career and at the stage in the situation Maryland was in, where it just felt like they'd just been abused and kicked to the curb by the last guy. It seemed like maybe you get somebody with a little more ties, a little more skin in the game rather than somebody who bounces around a lot. But
trying to think of 2 top 30 recruits in the same year. I think Joe Smith and Keith Booth were both top 30.
Yeah, I think Joe was 40.
Well, he kept rising late.
Yeah, Booth
by the end,
he was in the 20s.
And the year before that, we've talked about this before, and I wish I could find that magazine that I had. Johnny Rhodes was the 5th ranked recruit in the country in one of the magazines, I promise you. I know you say that's too high, but he was a top 50. And I think X and Dwayne Simpkins were both around the top 50 as well. I don't know if any other of them got into the top 30, though.
Because Simpkins was McDonald's, I'm pretty sure.
He might have been close. He might have been close.
McDonald's All-American. So yeah, that's rare grounds. I mean, the question is now, like, you better be a hell of a coach to bring in 13 dudes from different directions everywhere who have different everything, different experience, expectations of their role, have never played together. Well, I shouldn't say that. The Texas A&M guys obviously have played together, but otherwise, it'll be interesting to see him meld all these guys together from all different locales.
Greg Wax backs me up. Maryland beat Duke for Danny Miller.
Yeah, I think I really do think he's the last one.
He probably is. And he was, what was he, like 98?
Yeah, he's
something
almost 30
like that.
years ago.
1998. Another question from Steve Hassler. I'll say, I know there's an umlaut over that A, Steve. Is it Hassler maybe instead because of the umlaut? All right. A question occurred to me. To what degree was Harris Smith's failure to live up to his 5-star reputation? What does it fall on Willard's coaching? Was DHS misused as a Terp? Not to make excuses for him.
I don't think so. We criticize Willard a lot. I don't think that one's totally on him. I think scouts just missed a little bit. Sometimes you have these kids who get really big and physically mature early on and can just bully everybody out of their way at the high school level. Like we've compared it to Sean Mosley at times. He was like maybe the leading scorer all time in Maryland high school history, I think, or way up there. And everybody thought he was going to be this big time scorer, but he had that old man game that was working really well. I mean, he obviously had a good career. I think it's similar with DHS. I mean, when you watch him, first off, confidence level is I'm not trying to pile on, but I don't know if I've ever seen a guy with body language is bad, consistently
It was bad.
Confidence-wise. Doesn't shoot the three well, and he's really, for all the talk about him being athletic, he's really not that athletic. How many times did we see him dunk on somebody or even go up and finish at the rim, So, no, I don't think it's – I mean, you might be able to get more out of him. Maybe he goes to Georgetown, becomes a solid player, but I don't think –
I think he needs a change of location. He needs a fresh start. So hopefully it'll work out for him. I really wanted him to stick around and improve, but it wasn't working. So Another question from Chris L. How likely is Tyler Jackson coming to Maryland?
I mean, I'm told it's fairly likely. He was on campus this week, as I reported on the site. Had lunch with Buzz Williams. I don't know what the numbers game is for them right now in terms of, I know that a lot of the names they're recruiting, but sometimes you don't know which guys are both for the same spot. So like if Travis Perry comes on board, does that affect him at all? Even though Jackson's a little bit more of a point guard, a scoring point guard at that. I don't see why you wouldn't take a flyer on a guy like that unless you have some non-basketball.
Yeah.
When you watch his video, it's super crafty with the ball. I mean, I'm sure he would have some pretty rough moments, but he's also kind of a dynamic, creative guy. You're not going to have to pay a ton of money. I think the other schools are Oklahoma State, Boston College, and Memphis. So, if they want him, there's no question he's there. It's like he definitely wants in. And that's
and they have 15 spots now, and they've only got 9 players. Is he going to get 6 more? Why not? Go ahead, take him.
Yeah. I mean, if you can, I guess you have a couple guys for insurance policies.
And maybe he's one of Buzz's.
I don't know that they're going to get him, but he's ready if they're ready.
Maybe he becomes one of Buzz's red shirts as well, because Buzz likes to do that. Here from Chris L. again. What about Baba Latitude, who was the number 1 player in 27? Is that right? 27?
Yeah, 27.
Number one player in the country.
Yep, number 1 player
from Maryland.
2027 from Silver Spring, where all the real ballers come from. If you don't know.
Also, Jeff Ehrman and Steve Francis.
Exactly. But they've reached out. I mean, of course, they're going to recruit a guy like that, the number 1 player in the country. I know that Buzz Williams has talked with Wayne Pratt, who is Kevin Durant's father, and runs the Team Durant program that Baba plays for. So they'll definitely be going after him. But, on one hand, I was going to say, but who knows how high the bidding war gets. But if the NIL side is actually reined in, which is a huge if, of course, then, people won't be able to throw $3 million at a freshman and things like that. So that would help. But yeah,
that's a $1 million question, right? Or actually, we don't know how many dollar question it is. How many dollars are there left?
Yeah. I mean, you mean in Maryland's budget?
Yeah.
In their budget right now? Yeah, I don't know. I think they started with 7.3. That was 4.5 in revenue sharing and 2.8 in NIL money they had in a bank account. So you've got 9 guys now. I've been meaning to sit down and write out, what I think their deals are probably roughly, try to figure out what they have left. But, top of my head, they probably have maybe upper ones left, would just be a guess. I mean, that's just a guesstimate, not something somebody's told me. So still, Bob is down the road anyways. He's 2 years down the road.
And at that point, the entire landscape could be completely different. We'll see what happens with the House settlement and then how teams react to that. And then supposedly we had ex-Terrapin AD, Damon Evans, on the show a couple of months ago. He told us that there was going to be a new governance system or a clearinghouse, whatever you want to call it. Every deal over $600 was going to have to be approved. But we know what's going to happen. We know what's going to happen with that, right?
It still seems like a total fairy tale, but everybody's running around confident about it. But they were also running around confident that the settlement would be done April 7th. And, when you look at the football side of things, that's hurt them a lot, because I think Evans basically gave guidance to all his coaches that once that happened, once that date passed, you wouldn't have to worry about competing with these schools with all this NIL money. then the judge kicked the can down the road a little bit, and so now you got
We
the
know it's going to
formal.
happen. It's going to go back to the old way. They're going to go back to doing it on the table, right? Okay. Hey, our guest is here. Let's add him. We welcome to the show. There we go. Octavian Smith Jr. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you guys? Thank you for having me.
We just got done
Thanks for joining us.
watching the. Yeah, thank you for joining us. You just got done watching the spring game, and we saw you guys. We saw the reports coming out of spring practice. What are the vibes like right now? What went well? What do you guys need to work on?
Uh, with it being a new team, there's really things that we could work on. It's just finding our that's really what spring ball is for though. Going into spring ball is like kind of finding our identity, like figure out who we're going to be, going into the fall. And well, it was a lot of highs that occurred during spring ball. A lot of guys like making plays, like even though we got like a new offensive system, but nobody really like complained or kind of held their head down. Everybody like embraced the new change because change is always good. Um, and really, we just been we've been doing like walkthroughs together, this, that, and the third as a team, like as an offensive unit, to make sure we have things like set in stone, and really, yeah, like it's been good. I'm not gonna lie.
You mentioned a new system, Octavian. What's the
Yeah.
biggest difference? I know Locks is still going to have a lot of his principles involved, but what's the biggest difference now with Pep running the show?
The difference between Pep running the show, really, for like from the years past, really nothing different. Like our offense, like he has his own like his offensive system, but it's still going to be you can still expect it to be very explosive. This past round we put emphasis on the running game because in the Big Ten you got to be able to run the ball, and that's really been like helping us like in the passing game because if we're able to run the ball effectively, then that opens the doors for us receivers, taking shots down the field like with play actions and things like that.
Last year, Octavian, there were kind of two primary receivers who caught the bulk of the passes, and you did well as well. You caught about 30, but Ty Felton and Caden Prather both gone, both drafted in the NFL.
Yeah.
They're gone, and it feels like there's a new group forming here. You got Jalil and another transfer. I'm getting his name right now. I apologize. But you got a bunch of guys who are all swarming around. How's that working out with all of you guys?
It's working out well. We like Jalil and like the Caleb Webb who came in
There we go.
also.
Webb, thank you.
Yeah. Like they came in and ready to work, and me being the vet now, like with like you said, Ty and KP, congratulations to them getting drafted. They kind of I was able to learn from them from what they were when they were here, and they passed me the torch, and now I get, like as an older guy, I got to step up in the room as a leader, and you know do the same for the younger guys like after me that KP and Ty did for me. But when it comes to the receiver room, like I said, like, it's very explosive. Like we got a lot of guys in there who's capable of making plays, and like the chemistry, like we all like joke and laugh together all the time. We all hang out together. So it's the receiver room, like as a brotherhood, it's very tight and close knit.
And what have the coaches, Locks and Pep, and others told you about what they expect from you this year? It seems like you're kind of a really big X factor, right? We've seen you have the talent to be a big playmaker. Now they need you to be like a top option day in and day out. What's that like, and what have they said to you about that?
What's expected out of me is continue to basically like reach my full potential going into this season. Like you said, like me, like it goes back to me being the older guy in the room. With my experience and things like that, playing as a true freshman all the way up until now. The game's like has like slowed down for me. So I plan to like use that to my advantage. Like use what I know, like about like how the college game like coverages and this that, and the third to be able to help me in the future. Really, and like expectations is just I don't got to do nothing spectacular. I just got to, be me, and then that's just have fun and make plays that I know I'm capable of making.
Octavian, you mentioned the vibes and about how you guys are all hanging out and how you really like each other. In
Yeah.
a recent interview, Coach Locks said that he lost the team last year, and it was the first time he'd lost the team.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering, from the outside, it kind of felt like that too. Obviously, we don't know what's going on the inside, but that translates onto the field, right? And so I'm wondering, do you agree with him that there was some issues in the locker room last year, and that maybe this year there's a different feeling about the team?
Uh, yeah, I feel like as a team last year, like we had the potential to do very special things. But like we just we fell short, and that's like something like going into this year, like Coach Loxley's been preaching like from like all season training to through spring ball, this then like and all the way up to like summer when we get to camp, going into 2025 season. Change is good, and it's something that we've been working on. Like we gotten together as like a leadership council to identify ways how we can make sure that like the locker room is like really like a close knit and like a true like brotherhood. Not saying that it wasn't last year, but we just have to like weed out like the issues that we ran into and things like that, like with the new college landscape, and just make sure that everybody who's in that locker room, like come June 1st when we find out who our team is, that everybody's bought in on the mission, and like we got to make sure that like everybody like knows what it means to be a Terp, and really that's just going off of like Coach Locke, like what his standards and things of that nature, on what he sees like, as a true Terp being.
What are your thoughts so far on Malik Washington? If he ends up being the guy, you think he's got the intangibles to be someone who can actually come in and start as a true freshman, as very few guys can do on the Big Ten level?
Hmm. Yeah, Malik, he's a special kid. We also like Justin and like Christian Martin. Like we got a lot of young guys, but they all have their own style of play and they all bring their own juice to the field when they step on. And honestly, like, whoever wins the job, I feel like we'll be in a good position going into this year. But yeah, Malik Washington, that's my guy. Me and him like this. I've gotten to get real close with him, um, especially because he's my locker mate. So yeah, Malik Washington, like seeing how he came in as a true freshman, he's very mature for his age. Despite like you said, going into this year being a true freshman, he's very mature and he has like a natural leader. He has natural leadership capabilities, and you could feel it whenever he steps into the room or opens his voice to like rally the team together. If he you know like what like a true quarterback does.
You talked about being a leader earlier,
Hmm.
and now just talking about how Malik's your guy as a leader, and also talking about how each of the quarterbacks have different styles, which obviously greatly affects your game.
Yeah.
As a leader, do you talk to the coaches about that? Do you say, hey, this is what the players think, this is what we think, or do you just kind of leave it alone and let them go, make their
In terms
decisions?
in terms of what?
Making decisions about playing time and who might win the starting job and all those kind of things.
Oh nah. We as players, we don't talk to the coaches about that.
Okay.
We let them do that. That's their job. We're just out there to you know put they you always hear like film doesn't lie, and every day we basically just go into every practice or treat every practice like a showcase, and allow the coaches to evaluate us, and they dive in on film, um, even harder as much as we do, So I know, especially like Coach Locks, he's going to make sure he has the best 11 on the field at all times.
Are there a few new guys, whether freshmen or transfers, who you've been like, wow, this guy's going to be a player?
Yeah, Malik Washington was the first one that come to mind. Um, like Caleb Webb. We got some young guys on defense that are going to. I feel like they're going to break out this year, as well as someone that's in my room, Ryan Manning. Um, uh, yeah, we got a lot of guys. We have a lot of capabilities. A lot of guys bring like their own juice and their own like style of play, and their God given talents to help us be a good team. So I'm excited going into this year, honestly.
Octavian, a lot of the fans and alumni that watch college football, there's a debate going on about the importance of bowl games with people opting out and all those kind of things. So I'll just ask you, how important are the bowl games?
Bowl games are important. You know, Coach Locke treats bowl games as the beginning of the next season, and you know, going into like those practices is really, you know, like being a part of two, the Duke Mayo Bowl, and then the Trans Perfect Music City Bowl when we was in Nashville. Um, you know, he doesn't treat it any different than like he does any other game. Like we still going with the same intent and you know the same attitude, you know, to go out there and put our best on the field and you know that's put on the show.
Okay, Octavian, we enter every interview by playing fill in the blank. I'm going to ask you 5 rapid fire questions. Say the first thing that comes to your mind, okay?
Oh Lord.
Here,
Okay.
here we go. Jeff kind of stole the thunder on this one, but I'll do it anyway because I wrote it in advance. The player no one is talking about, but will surprise next year is?
The player you said the player no one is talking about.
No one's talking about that, but's going to surprise everybody next year is?
I say Ryan Manning.
Okay. He did look good in the spring game. Number 2, in next year's NFL draft, the team you'd most like to draft you is?
Any team willing to take a chance with me.
I thought you might say that. I was hoping you were going to say the Ravens, but that's okay. All right. Maryland has about 50 different uniform combos. Your favorite is?
The white ones that we wore versus Oregon.
I'm trying to remember what it was. Just
Yeah,
all
the
white.
crazy multicolored,
It was the white with the
metallic,
crazy like color. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, those are
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, good. On Open Door, Shabaya mentions that you like movies and TV. So your favorite movie of all time is?
Biker Boys.
Don't think I know it. All right, last one. Your nickname for Coach Loxley is?
For Coach Loxley, Bubs. What's up, Bubs? Hey, Bubs.
That's funny because he uses
like
that.
Right?
Yeah. He'll bust that one out on you. That's funny.
That's funny. All right. Hey, Octavian, we asked one more thing if everybody comes on the show. Could you do us a favor and say, this is Octavian Smith Jr., and you're listening to IMS Radio.
This is Octavian Smith Jr., and you're listening to IMS Radio.
Thank you, Octavian. Hey, everybody, go check him out on X at Octavian Smith Jr. That's a JR. And go hit his opendoors.com. It's opendoors.com/profile/Octavian-Smith. And we put the link in our description. Help him out. He's been a Terp for 4 years. We love him for that in an era when people are not doing that. So we thank you for that. We very much appreciate that. Good luck this upcoming year. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, Octavian.
Thanks.
Appreciate you.
Take care.
There we go. There's a lot of good answers.
It's funny what he said because that I know why he said Bubs because Locks will call you up and be like, "What's going on, Bubs?" And you're like,
Locke says that too?
Yeah, he's stealing it. I think he's basically making fun of the fact that he says it.
Okay. Bubs. Yeah, I threw the sort of tricky one at him about the locker room because to all of us, we all have
that, understandably.
Yeah, well, he answered it well. He did give a little bit. He kind of said, you know, handling the issues, I think, is one of the phrases he used, and making sure that everyone is there for the team and concerned about the team, right? So I think those are little hints as to, you know, what Loxley alluded to. I didn't allude to. He said he lost the locker room. So
yeah, his thing is that he had, for the first time, he had a little bit of money, not a lot. I think $3 million. And so he felt like there were jealousy issues in the locker room because some guys were finally making some decent money and others weren't. So I think that's what that's about. But, you know, you never know. One man's lost locker room might be another man's. No, we didn't. You know what I mean? There's no, like, scientific tests for, like, people will say different things. But either way, you know, they better have it this year.
Well, Loxley's lost locker room may be different than other coaches too, like you just said, because he's used to having everybody love him. So even a minor glitch might seem really bad to him, where other coaches are just that's standard.
Yeah, and I don't know how do you like keep good chemistry these days with guys just revolving door every day of the week coming in and out? I don't know how you even do that. And everybody, different guys getting different amounts of money. Somebody who's
Well,
you might have gotten more money than you.
there's the recent examples 2 years ago of Michigan, last year of Ohio State. They both spent crazy amounts of money to pay NFL level players who could have left, gone to the draft and didn't and came back. And both of those teams kind of famously were there to win championships and they were all in. And so it is possible, right? And unfortunately, you know who's doing that this year, if you saw my video all the way through, I predicted is going to make the title game at least. Penn State is doing that. They brought a lot of guys back. They only have 5 guys drafted. It could have been a lot more, but they paid to have them come back. So it is possible to do that, but you just need a lot of money to do it.
Yep, you do. And Maryland does not have that.
Yeah, speaking of my video that I did earlier today, go watch that. Maryland, way too early projections for Maryland football. All right, I got true or false for you, Jeff.
Okay.
Ready? Buzz will have the team in the top 20 at some point next year.
True. I think he's got the pieces to get them. You know, they're not going to be a powerhouse, but I think he's got some pieces, and he'll get enough more.
Maryland will make a bowl game next year.
I'll probably go false. I think they have a chance to be a little better than people realize, but there's not a lot of things you can really hang your hat on right now with them. So I'll go false.
The vibes is what you can hang your hat on. All right. Octavian Smith will lead the team in receptions.
Yeah, I'll say true. I mean, he's the number 2 right now after Farouk, and Farouk's been injured, so it'll be one of those 2 guys. But you know, I've always thought. Even I remember I fell in love with his video back. He was at Paint Branch High School.
He's a 4-star.
He was a 4-star. He committed to Northwestern, and Maryland flipped him, and he looked like a stud. And you can see it sometimes in these games. Last year, you could see a little more toward the end. Like he's got some real natural slipperiness to him. So sure, I'll say true.
Maybe he'll have the Ty Felton breakout this year. Darius Adams will lead the team in scoring next year.
Nah, false. No, I mean, he's very highly ranked, but don't think that he's Derek Queen. Like, he's not going to come in and be dominant like that. I don't think most people I talk to think he'll help right away, but he's not going to be a star necessarily right away. Maybe if you ask me the following year, maybe it'd be true depending on who they have at that point. But then again, you know, anybody really could be when your best player is a guy in Payne who isn't a perimeter scorer at all. You know, he's just an athletic monster in the paint. Who knows? Like, trying to guess who will be their few leading scorers right now and how much they'll average would be impossible.
This one comes from Hoagie. Pharrell Payne will be better this year than Julian Reese's best year at Maryland.
It's possible. I mean, he has to prove he can do that, though. Like, in the NCAA tournament, his numbers were absurd. 51 points in 2 games, shot like 80%, you know, just ridiculous. But then if you go back and look at his game log, there's quite a few like 6, 8, 7 kind of games in there. So he's more athletic than Reese for sure, and he has a chance to be. But that's
Julian kind of had that too, though.
He did at times. He was up and down. Like his sophomore year, he had a lot of double-doubles, had a great stretch. This year, he had that really good stretch late in the season. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see on that. I think people underestimate Juju a little bit.
All right. Buzz will sign at least 4 more players.
I think that's, true. I think that's probably the number. You know, they could go up to 6 more, but yeah, I think he'll sign 4 or 5 more.
Okay. Last one. Loxley will sign at least 4 more transfers from the portal.
That's a good one. I haven't looked at broken down the scholarship numbers recently. I'll probably say, well, you know what? That's hard to answer. It'll be right in that range. They've filled out a lot of the spots. You know, they got the safety, the kid from Austin P the other day. So they're probably done at safety. They got several defensive linemen. It could be less than 4, actually. I got to crunch the numbers, but I'll say false. It could be, 1 or 2 less.
All right. Well, there you go. That was the last one. So that was good. I think Octavian did a really good job. I like him. I'm going to be rooting for him. Everybody's going to be rooting for him. A 4-year guy who's stuck around and gotten better every single year. Got to love that. That's what college sports used to be about. I was going to say that's what it is about. It's what it used to be about.
It's all
Anyway,
about the money.
Now it's all about the money. All right. Hey, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're wishing Paul Douglas well on his dental surgery, which I can say because he posted it on the message board. But it's, we'll have him back next time. If you guys have not subscribed, please do that for us. Please click like, all those things. We very much appreciate it. I'm not sure when we'll be back. It kind of depends on if there's a flurry of recruits and commits and transfers and all those kind of things. We will let you guys know. This is IMS Radio.